February came and went, so we're going to talk about all the books that I read in February. I managed to read 27 books. Out of the 27, 13 were from my physical TBR, which two of them I have already sold because if I don't like a book, I'm getting rid of it. And so two of them are already gone. And then I read 12 audiobooks and then read two ebooks. So I thought we could start with the ebooks first just because I only have two of them. I have been reading less ebooks. It has made my reading experience a lot better because I'm not forcing myself to read in a way right now that I don't really want to. I'm also thinking about maybe potentially selling my Kindle and then maybe getting a Kobo color or something like that eventually. But I just think right now I'm just really enjoying audiobooks and my physical books. And so that's where I'm going to stick with that. But both of these ebooks ended up being arcs that I needed to read. So of course that was going to happen. The first one was A Lady for All Seasons by TJ Alexander. TJ Alexander also wrote A Gentleman's Gentleman, which was one of my favorite historical romances last year. And A Lady for All Seasons, this is a sapphic historical romance. And I will say I didn't enjoy it as much as The Gentleman just because I feel like we didn't get to focus on the romance as much as I wanted to, but I love the representation of this book. TJ Alexander always has really wonderful characters in their books, and I love the trans representation and just finding out your sexuality and being proud in your sexuality. And of course, it is in a Regency era, so there's always a little bit of drama and gossip along the way. So I do enjoy it, and I do recommend for whenever it comes out. And then the second ebook that I read was Wretch, and this is my first of this author's work, and it was definitely weird, but it just left me wanting, and I was just kind of, I know we are exploring themes of grief and loss and maybe having that chance again and what that would look like, but I just needed a little bit more. I felt like I could not really connect to our main male character and his pain and what he was going through, and I really wanted to. So it hasn't dissuaded me from not reading anymore from this author, but maybe just being, I don't know, this being the first of their work that I read, I was a little bit disappointed. The two physical books that I have already gotten rid of, the first one was The Trident and The Pearl, and I was so grateful that the publisher sent this to me, but I'm always going to be honest. And this was supposed to be this really great romantasy, and I think a slow burn, but I just felt like between our main female character and our main male character, it couldn't even be considered a slow burn because they're not even really interacting that much. And when they are, it's like on his end, he had these beautiful prose, but it meant absolutely nothing because there's literally no connection between them. And it was so disappointing, and I was very upset because I thought it was going to be so great. I also did the immersive read. I also had the audio from the publisher as well, but it just did not work out, and I do not recommend it. The second book is Fairy by Veronica Lancet, and I have heard many different things. I had a friend who told me, she's like, Sarah, you're not going to like it. And she was right. I am not prideful enough to say that she was definitely right. It was just my biggest qualm with really thick books is most of the time I find that they don't need to be that thick. And I know there's themes of we want that character development. We all no, it was just long for the sake of being long. There was one POV that I really enjoyed, and we didn't get most of her until the very end, and I just thought the book was unnecessary, so I don't recommend. But moving on to brighter things, The Once and Future Queen is an Arthur retelling. I absolutely loved this. This was an immediate 5 stars for me. I loved the banter, the found family. It is a reimagining, of course, and so I just thought it was done so well. It is the first book in a series. Jackal was also a surprise for me just because I'm not really big into thriller mysteries, and this is definitely heavy thriller mystery with horror elements. I would say if you are a seasoned horror reader, I don't think this is going to be anything that necessarily like, there is body horror, don't get me wrong, but it's not any too extreme if you are a seasoned horror reader. I just really love the conversations and theme around class and racism and bigotry and all of that. I thought that was just done so well. And the biggest thing about how Black girls go missing and us as a society have failed them and continue to fail them. And that was the biggest highlight for me in this book. It was one that made me a little bit emotional. The imagery was great. The representation was great. And it's one that I definitely read. Then I read these two bad boys, which is The Parable of the Sower and Parable of Talents. I have been so scared to read these books because I have heard nothing but good things, but also they just felt really intimidating to me. And I will say that once I got into them, they felt less intimidating. The themes in this book are very profound. This is a dystopian world, and just considering when they were written, well, it tells you a lot. And it just was done so well. I liked Parable of the Sower a little bit more than Parable of the Talents. I'm really sad that we didn't get the third book how Octavia Butler intended, but I think that these are amazing. They're incredible. I cannot do them service. I can't do them any justice by talking about them. You just have to read them. They are done through journal entries. And I will say, maybe steeper your expectations just a little bit, because the way that I had, I guess, in my perspective, how this was going to be, it was going to be very action packed. Don't get me wrong, horrendous things are happening and we are following those things, but we really are just following a group of people trying to survive and what that looks like. And horrific things are happening left and right, but it's not maybe this action packed dystopian world has, at least in my perspective, been talked about. So fantastic, definitely recommend. Butter Honey Pig Bread is probably one of the highlights of my February. This is a literary fiction following a mom and her two twin daughters. It is sapphic, it is heartbreaking and funny, and the food was absolutely delicious. I loved the Nigerian culture, and it was just done so well. 5 stars. How to Be an Anti-Racist was one of my nonfiction picks for this month, and it was fantastic. I think everybody should read it. Something I really appreciate about this is that the author, whenever he came out with the book in paperback, he had already made some revisions. So I am really happy that I did the immersive read, because in the audiobook, he's also describing those revisions for the people who have hardback. And so that was really helpful for me. And I just appreciate this book so much. House of Eve is my first Sadika Johnson book. This is a historical fiction following 2 women. And I will say, I don't really want to tell you much more than that. Their stories do end up combining, and I will say it was very devastating in a lot of ways for why their stories kind of started intertwining, but it was done so well. This will not be the last of Sadika Johnson for me. And I needed a little fluffy palate cleanser. So Just Our Luck was a great little rom-com. We're following our main FMC who's just lost her job. She goes out with her friends. They end up at a donut shop. He works at the donut shop, and they have a little moment together. She ends up leaving a lottery ticket, and let's just say their luck turns around. It was super cute. I did do the immersive read. It was a dual narration, and I thought it was a lot of fun. Then I had a little memoir, 2 Women Living Together. This was a great nonfiction read. I am going to suggest that you read this on audio, because there are 2 narrators, and I thought they did a great job. But it's about 2 women who move in together. They don't want to live to societal norms. They're in their 40s. They love cats. They have no children. They're not married. And it's about platonic friendship and love. And I loved it so much. Then I read Eidolon, which was the second book in this duology. Absolutely recommend it. It's a political fantasy. It was fantastic. Then lastly for physical was Eternal Room by Tigges Germa. I love this trilogy so much. Well, I guess it's not a trilogy quite yet, because the 3rd book comes out this fall, but I love it. I know that this series tends to be a hit or miss for a lot of people, but for me, the emotions that Tigges Germa can evoke from me is just incredible. Kiran made some very questionable decisions. She was pissing me off most of the book, and for valid reasons. Does that mean I love her any less? No, I do not want my characters to be just perfect and nice, and that's boring to me. I want to see the character development and growth. Book, we better see it, because Kiran, my girl, I know you've been through a lot, and I love ya, but I need you to get it together in book 3. Let's move on to audiobooks. So the first audiobook that I listened to was Swallowed by Meg Smitherman. This is a sci-fi erotica. It was fine. It annoyed the piss out of me because the main female character kept saying her love interest name about 1,000,000 times. The plot was very obvious, and so overall it was just fine. Finally finished up Hookshot, which is the 3rd book in, I can't remember what the series is called at the moment, but by Kennedy Ryan. I really enjoyed it. I still think Longshot is my favorite, but Hookshot was very good. We're following a basketball player who is a newly single dad and then a fashion designer, and I thought it was really. I read Stamped, which was another nonfiction read. This is like a YA nonfiction read, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very accessible. I think that if you're trying to get back into nonfiction, I definitely would recommend. Memphis, this was so fun. I did read the 1st book in this series, and so Memphis is the 2nd one. If you love an unhinged man who is like, that is my woman, she is mine, then this will be for you. Mutual Aid, yet again, another nonfiction read. I thought it was great. It wasn't necessarily anything too new when coming to learn about mutual aid and what that looks like, but I really enjoyed it. It was a buddy read, and we had some great conversations. The Body, unfortunately, was a big disappointment for me. This was a religious horror, and I just think that we had all of this buildup, and I thought the payoff was just not worth it, sadly. 1201, this was absolutely hilarious. I loved this book so much. So essentially we're following a woman. She is engaged. She finds out the man that she's engaged to has been cheating on her with his cousin. So she shows up at their wedding because now he's going to marry the cousin. Also, they're not really cousins. He was just saying that. So she shows up to their wedding with a bat, and she ends up going to jail. The person to bail her out from jail is her ex-fiance's brother. And then he's like, I'm going to take you to a pleasure house because we're going to get your mind off of this. And it was just a spicy, fun, hilarious, good time. It is exactly what I needed, and I thought it was fantastic. This Wretched Beauty, which is a Dorian Gray retelling, it's fine. I loved all of the queer representation in it. I just thought it was fine. It was a little bit slow. We're in Dorian's head most of the time. I needed something else to hold on to. The House on Mongo Street was great. This has been a very short novella. It's been on my TBR for such a long time, but we are following a young Latina girl in Chicago, and it's a coming of age story with multiple different stories inside, and I really enjoy it. Indigo by Miss Beverly Jenkins. This is my second Beverly Jenkins book. It did not disappoint. I love it so much. I still love Rebel just a little bit more, but this was fantastic. It is a historical fiction, and you just have to read it. Just promise me you'll read it. It's so good. Another nonfiction that I read this month was One Day Everyone Will Have Been Against Us. Again, I think it's required reading. I think it was fantastic. Something I really appreciated about this book is the author is not BSing. They literally get right into the book. They call in and call out every single person, whether you're conservative or if you are liberal, whether you are right-wing or you are left. This author is calling out and calling in absolutely everybody. It was fantastic. Then lastly, it was A Love Worth Forever, which was another arc by Brianne Denée. This is my first of her work. I have been meaning to read her work forever, I feel like, but this was a slow burn romance. And she doesn't like him, but he is all about her. And it's a little bit of a workplace, that type of deal. I thought it was great. It was just a good little palate cleanser. Not too much happens, but sometimes I appreciate that in the book. We just are really getting to know our characters and their lives. I do think I could have focused on the romance just a little bit more, but overall, I really enjoyed it. So it's definitely one that I would recommend. So that's everything that I read for February. Here we are. We made it. Let me know if you've read any of these, or maybe what your top read for February was. I would love to know. Appreciate y'all.